Sugaray Raper, and we are live at the Suga Shack.
Yo, 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 how is everybody doing? It is good. It is good to be back. My guest today is the legendary, the inimitable, my main man, Mr. Fred the Man Kaplan, a long time blues giant in the blues scene, especially on the West Coast. And what a boogeyman he is, piano player extraordinaire. And as well as my buddy. I mean, he's good people. He always invites me to his house. I never even make it, but he's a sweetheart of a guy. I've loved having the opportunity to work with him. We've recorded together on many projects. I think at least 3 or 4 projects we're together, and just good, all around good people. Y'all know me. I'm looking up here because I got you on the big 80-inch screen in front of me. But I'll continue to try to make sure I remind myself to look at this particular camera. Today is question of the day. It's not really a question of the day. It's more of a challenge. My challenge is for everyone to do something nice for someone beside themselves this 24 hours. It could be something as easy as waving at somebody across the street, saying hello and speaking about how good the day is. Or it could be as deep as bringing food to needy people or someone that you know is in need. And we want to do this for no benefit other than to raise love. It's about love today. My challenge today is everyone do something nice for someone beside yourself today. That is my challenge for everyone that's under my voice today. Everybody's coming in. Barbara Ryan, good afternoon. Gail Banks, good afternoon. Freddie Lawson, hi, San Diego. Lolo, what up, baby? She said, yay, Freddie. It's going to be good. So again, my question of the day today is more of a challenge. I want everyone to join me in going out and just doing something nice for someone. Like I said, it could be something as simple as just saying, have a nice day. Or it could be as deep as paying somebody's rent or feeding somebody that's hungry. Or, you know, you don't have to go crazy. You can just look around your house and find something nice that you can do for somebody. Today, we're spreading love. Let's find a way to be nice to someone just for, excuse my French, shits and giggles, just for the goodness of humankind. Find somebody today to be nice to and just say, do your thing. Be nice to them, however way you want to do it. Not looking for a reward or anything, just the joy of bringing joy to someone else. Right on, y'all. I am Sugaray Raper. As always, we got the Wizard of Oz backstage. He's also, let me let you guys know, it is Eric's birthday tomorrow. We won't get to see him, so we got to let him know now. I won't tell you what his age is. He might be one of those people that's fickle about knowing his age, but he's turning a milestone tomorrow. Tomorrow is Eric Sassaman's birthday. Gail Banks said, challenge is done. Loretta says, hey there, Shug, working and listen. Hi, Pam. Hi to my hubby, Eric. Oh, isn't that sweet? Eric put it up there, so I can say it now. So Eric turning the big 60 tomorrow, y'all. The big 6-0. Oh, baby, 6 nails in the coffin. But he still look young. He still don't look like he's about 48, 49 years old. Not bad for a young squire, a young Caucasian. He looking good. He ain't got all wrinkled up yet. I like it. I like it a lot. Right on. Well, let me move on because I want to make sure that we're able to get my guest in. And he's a cute, cool, really cool cat. Like him a lot. I want to play this video right here. I was looking at this the other night. Here's one, and I haven't played him so much on the show. Actually, I don't think this is only the first time. Here's one by my man, Mr. Junior Watson. You guys sit back and see if you can dig this.
I wanted to put your hands together for Junior Watson, ladies and gentlemen. Where you at, Junior? Where you at, Junior? All right, let him hear you.
Eric, Lisa said, oh my God, he's old. Thank you, Bob.
Let your tears fall, baby, if you really wanna cry. Let your tears fall.
Frederick Lawson said you're right behind him. Happy Big 60. Groundhog's Day. Oh, good Lord. You've experienced that at least 60 times starting tomorrow, Eric. Here, y'all. Mr. Junior Watson, check this out.
Round of applause for Knockout Greg and his wonderful band. He's fantastic, isn't he?
Don't try this at home, kids.
One, two, three.
Miss Gail Banks, how you doing? Happy birthday to your brother. Love you too, Alicia. Chef Denis, bonsoir monsieur, bonjour. Comme ci, comme ça. Right on, Miss Banks. Christina, how's it going up there in Canada, gorgeous? Miss you. Merci, chef. Merci. Patricia Gleason, what's going on? 362444. Nicole Mullen. Look like from here at Gibson Gold Top. I am coming, Nicole. Just booked the Red Rooster Festival, the Holland Festival, Pier Festival, going to London, going to Paris. I'll be seeing you soon. May, June, July, somewhere in there. Well, you know, Gail, black don't crack, baby. They didn't believe you was 60. That was a compliment. All right, Dominic, right on. My man, Junior Watson there, man. Good guitarist, good front guy. He's doing his thing. I am 64 and a half, thanks. Well, you look good, Gail. I ain't mad at you, Gabriel. I ain't mad at you. Jan, how you doing in Plattsburgh, New York? How's Laura Carbone doing? I was talking to somebody in New York yesterday. Who was I talking to? But they were saying they were under like 10 inches of freaking snow. That's crazy. But they said it was good snow. It was Patty Debris, my publicist. And she said, yeah, but it's a good snow, Ray. She lives right by the park. She said, it's a good snow. I said, what do you mean? She said, it's not that white, dirty, slushy snow. It's dry and flaky, you know. So she went out and did some cross-country skiing. At least she said she was thinking about doing it anyway. And it was her birthday just 2 days ago also. So happy birthday, Patty Debris. Giving a big shout out to my management, apropos management, Stephanie Gonzalez, to my booking agent, Jesse Rossoff, who's kicking butt, him and Scully. Jesse from the Mint and Scully doing my booking overseas. Right on. Everything is good. My guest today is the amendable Mr. Fred Kaplan. Love this cat. Hellacious piano player, hellacious human being. I love that mostly. I've had the opportunity to play with him with the Managed Boys and a couple of other different situations with me and Bob Corritor. Heck, we've even did some tours. I'm trying to think what country we was in. It was me, him, and Junior Watson and Henry Gray and Bob Corritor. And I don't even know what country it was in, but that was a great festival. We had a heck of a time, man. That's when Henry Gray was fooling me. You know, he would walk around with a cane like he couldn't walk, and then jump on the stage and get behind the piano and just dang near kill you. I was like, what's going on? And I think we might even did some shows with the Three Bobs. But anyway, he's my guest today. Today, the question of the day is more of the challenge of the day. My challenge I sent out to everybody is to do something nice for somebody outside yourself. I know Valentine's Day coming up. My birthday is coming up the day before that, but that don't count. I mean, find somebody. Whether it's helping somebody fix a flat, buying someone flowers or a plant, leave it on their porch, or like I say, just waving to the neighbors next door and having a small conversation if you can without getting sick. Just find a way today. I ask you, I beg you, find a way today to be nice to somebody. Do something for someone else. I tell you, when you do that, you feel better for yourself also. It's just help your day go out just that much better. Right on. I want to play one by Fred. I picked this up. I like this. He plays with a lot of bands, but I love it when I see him playing by himself. Check this out, y'all. This is Fred Kaplan. Lila Mama, love you. Lorenz, I'll be seeing you in Holland this summer. I hear you, Jan. Play it, Fred. Play it, boy. As we used to say back in the hood, look at that suit he got on. It's clean as a nickel's worth of neck bones, baby. I like that. Miss Richardson, how you doing, beautiful? Are you still in Hawaii? Augusto, how you doing, brother? What's going on? Obrigado. Brazil in house. All right, I think that's Junior too. I didn't watch the video all the way through. I didn't see Junior come up. Is that Junior? Yeah, that's a fat Junior. Dang, Julie, make sure you get yourself at least a little space heater or something to keep it warm. It's getting cold out there in the Seattle area. Right on. Right on, Julie. Just Lynn, you welcome, baby. Well, this boogie will warm you up, baby. This boogie will warm you up. Tap your toes. Get up, shake what your mama gave you. Come on. Ah! I hear you, Chad. Yeah, I'll be coming out that way, Patricia. I'll tell you about it in a bit. Thank you, Miss Banks. Well, as I know, he's still alive, still doing his thing. Pablo. Thank you, Alan. Thank you, brother. There you go, baby. Fred Kaplan, baby. I think it says Baltimore Boogie. That boy, he's a bad boy, baby. He's a bad boy. Band leader, songwriter. I just found out that he and my producer backstage, Eric Sassman, and them, they used to go to the same church, and Fred used to write all the songs for the choir. Matter of fact, they're still singing those songs. That is a legacy right there. That's a blessing right there. And that was all by accident. They didn't even know. I had to bring Eric on later and let you tell about the story about Lolo. She came in talking about Fred. Didn't even know he was going to be on the show today. And it was just a coincidental, coinky-dink thing. All right. Before I bring him up, again, question of the day is more of a challenge of the day. And the challenge is to go out there and be nice to somebody for no reason. Just scare the heck out of them. That you want to talk about blessing? Just walk up and be nice to somebody. They probably think that you're a serial killer. That's sad that just being nice to somebody freak people out. But I want today is about sharing love. So just go and be nice to somebody. I'm gonna tell you something for you people that don't want other humans interaction. Something that's really, really cool. All the homeless shelters, the number one product that they need in the homeless shelters is socks. Go down to Ross and buy 6 pair of socks for $3 and take that to a homeless shelter. That could be your blessing for the day. That would be blessing to somebody. I mean, it don't cost that much. You know, we ain't got to go to Target or Neiman Marcus. You can literally go down to Ross over to Walmart, and I'm not affiliated with any of those guys. I'm just talking about the blessing. And buy a 6 pack of socks for $5 and drop that off as a homeless shelter. If you're afraid to go to the homeless shelter, there's always the clothes boxes that are set around all the cities. You know, the yellow boxes, the green boxes, the blue boxes that are set up for people's clothes. Go buy 6 pair of socks and put it in the box. That's a blessing right there. Nobody got to see you for you to give somebody a blessing. So anyway, today is about sharing love and trying to take care of each other. So the challenge of the day today is to be nice to somebody. Do something nice for someone outside you. So that's cool. All right, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, I'm going to bring him up because I know he got some information to spill. He got some crazy things going on. He got some amazing things going on. Please put your hands as I bring him up stage. The inimitable Mr. Fred Kaplan, ladies and gentlemen. It's going to take 2 seconds, and we're getting right up. Fred.
Hey there.
Freddie.
What's up?
What it be like, my brother?
Nice to be here. It's nice to be here. Always better to be seen than viewed, right?
Always, brother. That's old school, but that's definitely true. That ain't never changed. Y'all hear that? It's much rather to be seen than viewed. And people always like, Sugar, how you doing? I said, and I always tell them I'm old school because I learned from my grandpa now. And I, Sugar, how you doing? I said, well, I'm on this side of the grass, baby. I'm on this side of the grass. That means there's always an opportunity. It's always good. How you doing, Fred?
Everything's beautiful, man. You put a baby up to it, he could do it. That's old school too.
That is old school, baby. That's almost
me and you, we're dinosaurs, I think.
Well, we come from the old school, man. You know, I can tell you was hanging around a bunch of the old brothers, but you know, the Jewish guys and the brothers always got together, especially in Chicago, New York, and even down south. You know, like Dallas and Houston. I don't know why, but it always happens that way, man.
I can tell you why.
Speak on it, brother. Speak on it.
I tell you, because we was both slaves. Who do you think built the pyramids, man?
Okay, all right.
They was whipping us pretty good for about 400 years.
Oh, dang. That's right. That is true, though.
You know, but it's interesting that you mentioned that because I was real fortunate because of my age. When I was coming up in the 70s, there were still lots of fantastic blues players living in and around Los Angeles, the original guys, you know.
Right.
And in fact, my piano teacher was originally from Texas. A lot of guys migrated before World War II.
Yeah. Out
to California, right? So my mentor was a guy by the name of Lloyd Glenn, who was just a musician's musician. I mean, he was the real deal. And I'll tell you the story how I met him in a minute, but there were all these incredible musicians still around back in the day, you know, Lowell Fulson. I worked with all these guys, and they were very hospitable to younger white guys, most of, you know, that really wanted to learn how to play blues.
Right.
So some of them, like my teacher, Lloyd, you know, they took us under their wings, you know, and nowadays there's not a whole lot of those people left anymore. Most of them are all gone. But back in the 70s and 80s, I mean, there was like a long list of people. I mean, we worked with so many different, when I say we, I'm talking about the Hollywood Fats Band.
Right on. If not, people don't know, he's with Hollywood Flats and the Blue Flames, ladies and gentlemen, from the beginning, right?
If you don't know about Hollywood Fats was an incredible guitar player. Me and him were about 6 months apart in age. He passed away in 1986. We buried him. But the Hollywood Fats Band basically became the Hollywood Blue Flames. What happened after Fats passed away, we didn't want to run a ghost band anymore and keep calling it the Hollywood Fats Band. So we kept the Hollywood part, and then we called it the Hollywood Blue to honor him. And we had all the guitar players that came through our band and some fantastic guys that we got to work with.
Can you name a few of them?
Oh yeah, I mean, you just had one on a minute ago up on the screen. Junior Watson,
right on.
Kid Ramos,
yeah.
Rusty Zinn came in. Rick Holmstrom came through.
Rick, okay.
Kirk Fletcher, when he was nothing but a baby man. Nobody even knew who Kirk Fletcher was. We helped put him on the map. Al Blake befriended Kirk when he was very young and kind of tutored him.
Right.
And then when Kirk got a little bit older, within a year, I think I introduced him to Junior. He took some lessons from Junior Watson, and then within a year, his career path went this way like that. But all these incredible guitar players came through the Hollywood Blue Flames, and we did a lot of recordings with all of them. Probably the most prolific has been Junior.
Yeah.
Nobody could really fill the shoes of Hollywood Fats. I mean, he was a very unique, genius musician. But all the other guys we were talking about, they all had a definitive say. You know, they all sound like themselves. And
right.
Some of them would give it up for Fats. That, you know, he had a big influence. Like Kid Ramos stood on stage with him for a while because Fats played guitar for James Harmon, and Kid Ramos was in that band. But the only one that I think was pretty much free of Fats's influence was Junior. A, because of his age, and B, I mean, Junior's a kind of an entity unto himself. He loved Fats, and they were friends, and we did play together sometimes with both guitars. But Junior didn't sound like Fats. He sounds like Junior Watson, and he always will. He's probably my favorite living guitar player right now. I mean, there's nobody sounds like Junior, man. He knows how to play with a piano too.
Well, that helps.
Yeah, well, I mean, a lot of guys back up harmonica player. I mean, it's all good. I'm not knocking any other guitar players, but Junior, like, he listens to piano records and stuff, and he understands what to play and what not to play, and he never overplays on, when we have gigs together. When I was watching the video you had up a little while ago,
Yeah.
Where I was playing on that Boogie Woogie, it was a little bittersweet because a couple of those guys in that band are gone now.
I was going to ask you that. Matter of fact, just for the audience's edification, could you rumble off the guys that were in the band right there?
That was Larry Taylor on bass. Larry is, we lost him just a couple years ago. Larry was the original bass player from Canned Heat. If y'all remember Canned Heat, they were in Woodstock and lots of they were, a very important part of rock and roll, American history, rock and roll. And the drummer is Richard Innes.
Yeah.
Who, we lost him a few years before Larry. And then that was Junior on guitar and myself on piano. In fact, I remember that gig. That was done at, it was the second version of, what was the name of that blues club? The Ash Grove. They opened up an Ash Grove back in the late 90s, early 2000s on the Santa Monica Pier. And we had a few days there with backing up Kim Wilson. So that's the band that Kim would use, me and Richard and Larry and usually Junior on guitar.
Well, right on.
And,
well, I know you got a couple of projects going. And I want to talk to you about that. But before we go anywhere, I'm going to play a couple more videos. Ladies and gentlemen, today my guest is the amendable Mr. Fred Kaplan. Fred, just hang out, and I'm going to bring you back in just a second, all right?
Okay.
That's Fred. He's got some info that he wants to share, and he's also got a big project that he's got in the works. So hopefully I can see that, and hopefully he'll talk about that as we bring him back. We'll be right back. Check it out, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to throw this one up here on you and see if it will work today. It's one of those days. You know how it goes. I don't know why it's one of those days, but it's one of those days. Check it out, y'all. you, Alicia. Good to see you also. Thank you, Nicole. Yeah, recorded in Rome, Italy with the Italian royal family. And it's funny because we did the, I didn't know I was going. We did the entire album. The vocals was done in a day and a half. So 12 songs a day and a half. So that was one of the songs toward the end of the day where I'm pushing up above my range a little bit. And I was already hoarse. But I like how it came out. The hoarseness and what you call chopping my voice actually works good with the song. The song is called Trouble on My Mind. We have my guest today. Again, I keep calling him that, the amendable Mr. Fred Kaplan, ladies and gentlemen, out here doing his thing. And I love him, Fred. And he's going to bring him back in just a second. And he got some stuff he wants to talk about. Gary Wright. Hey, Chef, thank you for all the slap your mama stuff, baby. I got some bone-in pork chops, some Texas pork chops that I'm going to throw on the grill probably tomorrow after I get back. We get done with the show. I got to get going. Got the new album coming out March the 4th, In Too Deep. They just will be releasing another single which will be the 4th single off the album, I think. I'm going to lift you up, and I may get the chance to try to play that one in just a minute. We're going to bring Mr. Fred back, and I got a video of him I want to play. But let me play this one right here. This one's near and dear to my heart. This is me, and I'm playing these. And it says, "Oops, Facebook, stop your broadcast." I was just about to say that if Facebook has a problem, make sure you go over to YouTube. This is going live to YouTube and Facebook. And I know that YouTube is a little harder to get your comments in, but it's a better viewing and mental quality. If Facebook totally shuts it down, that's the question I'm getting right now, is saying that Facebook may be shutting this down for whatever reason. So if that happens, go to Sugaray Raven on YouTube and look me up, and you'll see that the show is going live there. You can come in for there. It's a little harder to do, but you can come in there. Here's one more about Mr. Fred Kaplan. Check this out. This is his living room. His living room look like a concert venue. I like that, an intimate concert venue. Check it out, y'all. Okay. Facebook is gone. All right, that's good. But they said they sent me that thing. So. Okay. Right on. Peggy Lee, thank you, Mama. I've already put that up like 4 times, brother. You behind. Oh. Right on. Thanks, Nicole. Thanks, Gail. Julie Richardson, I'm not even going to say that out loud, because if I say that out loud, Facebook might do something. I'll put it up on the screen. I like this, Fred. This original, brother.
Made it my own because I don't have a band with it. It has other stuff going on with it.
Right on. I'm digging that, brother.
I learned it off a Ray Charles record when I was about 17 years old.
I saw that Ray Charles posted behind you. Somebody asked that you go to that concert. Okay, Lisa O'Neill, you have a good day, baby. Thank you for listening. Make sure you go pick up any of the product you can from Fred Kaplan, ladies and gentlemen. I know he's got some CDs out there. Meemaw, what's going on? I only comment on Facebook, YouTube, crank up every week. Right on. You got both of them running, I see. Nicole want to know, did you ever meet Ray Charles in person, Fred?
I did. I went to a concert, believe it or not, in Los Angeles. It must have been in 1974, 73, somewhere about there. There used to be a place called the Valley Circle Theater. It's long gone, and it was a theater where no matter where you sat, it was a good seat because it was round, and the stage was in the center like Melodyland, and the stage rotated very slowly.
I've been there before.
And this was before your time, man.
Was a place like that when I first came to California? Go ahead.
And the show, believe it or not, that my girlfriend at the time bought the tickets for my birthday. We went to see B.B. King and Ray Charles on the same show.
Wow.
And I got to meet both of them backstage after the show. Real nice people. Ray Charles was very pleasant. Nice guy.
That is pretty cool, brother. I like that stuff.
Ray Charles was a real big influence on me. His piano playing had a lot to do with how I approached the piano early on when I was younger.
Well, I can imagine. I mean, he was controlling the airways and everything at that time, too.
Yeah. They call him the genius because he could play anything, like country western music. He could play jazz. He could play blues. And if you listen to Ray Charles, within about 15 seconds, you know it's him. He owned it. Whatever he touched, he owned, you know?
Yeah, I can dig it.
But there's a very interesting story between Ray Charles and my piano mentor, Lloyd Glenn. Lloyd was older than Ray Charles. And back in the late 40s, maybe, early 50s, I'll wait till this song is over.
Yeah, and we're not talking over music, nigga. But I like that, brother. It made my soul feel good, baby. That's what it's about.
Yeah, that's Blues Church right there.
Yes, it is. Go ahead, talk to me now.
So we were. Here's the story. So Ray Charles, I think he was really young as he was a teenager, and he was living in Florida at the time. And my piano mentor, Lloyd Glenn, he was on tour with Lowell Fulsom, if you guys know who he was. Great guitar player, originally from Texas, came out to LA.
Originally from Oklahoma.
That's right. And then came to Texas, and then
you know why I know that, Fred? Let me jump in there. You know why I know that? Do you know who his nephews are? A lot of people outside the blues world don't even know that.
You can talk about
his nephews are the Charlie Wilson and those guys from the Gap Band.
That's right.
His brother was their daddy. A lot of people don't know that. But go ahead.
So Lloyd Glenn, my piano mentor, was the musical director and piano player for Lowell Fulsom. And they were on tour. And I think Lloyd got the call where he had to come back. Maybe one of his kids was being born or something like that, and he had to leave. And Lloyd Glenn had if you've ever seen pictures of him, very handsome looking man. He had a little silver streak right here in his hair, like some of the older piano players did. Memphis Slim did something like that too. Anyway, he left, and they didn't have a piano player. And somebody in the band said, well, there's this young kid down here in Florida. Maybe he could fit the bill. This was Ray Charles. And they got him in the band, and they dressed him up with a suit, and they conked his hair and put a little silver streak right in here, and they passed him off as Lloyd Glenn for the rest of the tour. So I heard that directly from Lloyd, but I also heard it. Other people told me, Lowell told me some of the same story. I was really fortunate. I got to work with Lowell Fulsom quite a bit. And he was a really great musician, incredible songwriter and singer. And he was a direct influence by a guy that I'm going to talk about in a minute. Some of your viewers might remember Finis. You remember Finis Tasby?
I ain't never going to forget Finis, man. I mean, we chewed a lot of road together in the
Okay, this is a really cool story, man. So we were the Hollywood Fats Band. We were played a show with Freddie King. I believe it was in San Diego. Hey, Gary, good to see you. I'm glad you stopped in. I'm just saying hi. I see his Gary Wright came up. He's my buddy in Arizona. Say hello to everybody. Say hi to everybody in Phoenix. Anyway, we opened a show for Freddie King, and we were backstage at intermission. And by the way, Freddie King is the guy that introduced Al to Hollywood Fats. Al Blake from the Hollywood Fats band.
Yeah.
Was friends with Freddie King. He used to go see him play in Oklahoma when Al was in like high school.
Okay.
So Freddie King told Al Blake, man, if you ever get to LA, there's this young kid guitar player out there who's a genius. That's how Al met Freddie King, how Al met Hollywood Fats. That's a whole nother story. And then I'll tell you how I met Fats in a minute. If I can remember all these, I'm going to tell you. So anyway, we opened the show for Freddie King. And at intermission, he points to this guy in the corner. He says, you see that guy over there? He says, he's a hell of a bass player. I said, really? I said, I need you to introduce me to him. I said, because Larry Taylor can't make some gigs and we need a bass player for the Hollywood Fats band to fill in.
Right.
So I went over, and he was driving the bus for Freddie King.
Yeah.
That was his job.
Mm-hmm.
And he was living in Texas. So me and Finis swapped phone numbers, and I asked him, I said, do you ever come out to California? And he says, yeah, sometimes. I got family up there. So I don't hear from him. And a few months later, my phone rings. He says, hey, Fred, I'm coming out to California. You got any work? I said, as a matter of fact, I do. I said, Larry's going to be leaving, excuse me, for a short time. And if you can come down and play some bass, that would be great. So we had a steady gig. We, meaning the Hollywood Fats band, me, Al Blake, Richard Innes, Larry Taylor, Hollywood Fats on guitar. We had a steady gig out in Southern California in Orange County at a place in Laguna Beach. It was called the White House Tavern.
Okay.
The building's still there, but I don't think it's anything like it used to be. In fact, Al told me it just got sold to some new owner. Sorry. So Finis comes out, and he filled in for Larry Taylor on the bass for a while. And I think we had him for like a week or two. And one night, there was about 8 people in the nightclub. And you got to remember, this is back in the 70s. Finis told me he never played for no white audiences or ever. It was strictly, this was brand new to him, right?
Yeah.
So he looks over at me and Fats. It's about 11:30 at night, and there's about 8 people in the nightclub. He says, hey, man, would it be cool if I sang a tune? Because up until that point, he was just a bass player in the band. So Fats goes, yeah, man, go ahead. You know, and he stepped up to the microphone, and we started playing. And about 8 bars into the tune, Fats and me, we all just looked at each other, and we said, this guy can sing, you know, like, it blew our minds. And after the gig, I'm paying everybody. We're getting ready to leave. And I looked at Finis. I said, how come you didn't tell me you could sing all this time? And he said, well, you never asked me. So
that's the way it was.
Yeah. So the next time we put him on the bandstand, I said, you could leave your bass at home, man. I said, just come down and sing. And Larry was playing bass then. And we began to introduce him to our audiences, and people went crazy for him. And, you know, probably less than a year's time, his career path started to go like that. And we stayed friends for a very long time. So here's a very cool thing that happened to tag onto that story. A few years ago, before the pandemic, I was meeting with a guy who was we were going to write a book together about the Hollywood Fats band. People have been bugging me for 35, 40 years to write a book about it. And one day he shows up to the meeting, and we're sitting in a Starbucks. And he said, Fred, I need to tell you this story. He said, I used to play guitar in a band, and we used to play up in Mammoth, California. Well, you know where that is up north, right?
Yeah.
And the Hollywood Fats band used to play 2 weeks every summer and 2 weeks every winter. It was a steady gig that we had at this restaurant, and they had a club downstairs in the basement. They had a music room, a bar. So he says, I was playing in a band in Mammoth when you guys were there. I said, really? I said, oh. He said, yeah. One night when we were off, he goes, we didn't have nothing to do. So me and one of the other guys in the band, we ended up at this club and you guys were playing down in the basement. I said, oh, cool. And he said, I listened for about 3 minutes and I realized I was hearing something very special and unique. So I ran out to my car in the parking lot and I got my boom box and some cassettes. You remember those, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes, I do.
and he put the cassette in and he recorded our band for the rest of the evening on cassettes. Right. And here's where it gets interesting. That particular weekend, or that week that we were there, that tour, we had Finis with us. Finis, he didn't have nothing going on, and we invited him, so he went on the road with us. And Finis is on the tape. So you got the Hollywood Fats band, and then you got Finis Tasby, where we call him up, and he does a whole set. Long story short, I've been in the studio just this week, and I was going through all the tapes and cleaning them up and trying to make them sound good. We're going to release it. I'm going to have it up on the website, and I'll give you the information in a minute. It's completely never heard before music from 1978.
Wow.
With the Hollywood Fats band live with Finis Tasby. And I hope to have it up on the website. On the it's hollywoodfatsband.com is the website. People can go there and pick up our whole catalog is online there right now. It's all downloadable. The prices are really reasonable. I just wanted to get the music out there. And I'm hoping in the next couple of weeks, I will put a blurb out on the internet for the new Hollywood Fats live stuff with Finis Tasby. I kept listening to it over and over the last few weeks, and the band is on fire. Fats is playing great. Finis is singing incredible. Al Blake is on there. Larry Taylor, Richard Ennis, myself.
Heck of a band.
And Fats on guitar. It'll be a really great recording. I mean, it has a few blemishes because it was on
live.
a little boom box this big, but
it was live. That's pretty cool, though. I mean,
yeah. And we're talking. This guy comes out of the woodwork. He found me on the internet, and 40 years later, he says, "Man, I got some music from you guys." So,
but the fact that he even kept it that long,
I know. Well, I want to put a challenge out to all of the people that are listening and watching. I'm making a documentary right now on the Hollywood Fats band, but particularly focusing on Fats, the guitar player. He was a genius musician. If you have any live video, especially, or recordings, audio, anything related to Hollywood Fats, you can find me through hollywoodfatsband.com. And there's a contact page in there because we're compiling stuff. We have quite a bit of footage already that I've had for years and years that I'm putting together right now for this documentary. The book was a great idea, but it sort of morphed over COVID. We had a lot of time, as everybody did, to think about stuff, and it just made more sense to make a movie. So it's a very fascinating story. Fats was a real interesting character. His parents used to take him. He came from a very affluent family. His father was a doctor. He's got a couple brothers that are still around, I believe. I know one of them for sure is a lawyer. I can't remember the other one's in real estate or something. But Fats' parents used to drop him off in South Central LA at clubs in the 60s, down in South Central LA, to learn how to play blues when he was like 13, 14, 15 years old. I mean, his story is just incredible. And the movie's going to talk about that, huh?
His parents would just take the little white kid and drop him in South Central?
Exactly. And they take him down there on a Friday or Saturday night, drop him off at 7:00. Somebody go pick him. One of his parents used to pick him up at 3 a.m. And that's how he learned how to play a lot of blues. I mean, plus he was just a genius guitar player. Fats had an incredible photographic memory here. Right. I could play him a record. When I saw this many, many times, I could play him a record of like maybe an early 40s T-Bone Walker record, or even earlier, like a 1920s Blind Blake record.
Yeah.
6 months later, he'd pick up the guitar and he'd start playing it note for note, exactly like he just heard it an hour ago. And I said, "How do you do that?" He goes, "I don't know. I just hear it. I keep it in my head." And so he had this innate ability to execute any kind of music. He was like the Michael Jordan of blues guitar.
Right on.
If he could think of it, he could play it. He was just that incredibly gifted. and he passed on a lot of his musicianship to the band in terms of like what he was, his ability to lead a band. I mean, he didn't really play the piano, but he could sit down and play me a piano part if he wanted to, or he'd go sit on the drums and say, Richard, play like this, or, very incredible musician. Anyway, a lot of these stories are going to be in the documentary movie. We're raising money right now. I have a GoFundMe page. If you want to play something from the GoFundMe, I think there's a little 60-second video that talks about why we're raising money. If you can find it, maybe have your guys put it up. But you can go directly to HollywoodFatsBand.com. You can read about the documentary a little bit there, and there's some really cool band histories of both bands, both the Hollywood Fats Band and the Hollywood Blue Flames. Lots of cool pictures, stuff that people haven't seen before. It's a brand new website. I just launched it in the last few weeks, so the word's getting out there. And we're starting to get some donations coming in. And so the movie's continuing. We have a lot of great interviews with different guys that played in the Hollywood Fats Band after Fats passed away. Obviously, guitar players, people like Junior Watson, he's in the movie. Kid Ramos is in the movie. Who else is in there? Kirk Fletcher's in there. Al Blake is in there. I got some rare stuff with Richard and Larry before they passed away in the early 2000s, where I'm interviewing them a little bit.
I think they passed away. They passed away just a little bit before I joined the Manish Boys. As a matter of fact, I remember going down to Brazil, and there's huge billboards all over for us doing that tour, and they had photoshopped the top part of my body over the bottom part of Bobby Jones, and they still had the picture of Ennis and Larry on the bass when they were still with the Manish Boys. It's weird, and I kept seeing this billboard all over Brazil. Like, what the hell? That's not even a band anymore. But you know how it goes.
Yeah.
But listen, let me say something real fast. I'm looking at that Mint poster behind you, and I'd be remiss if I didn't throw this up here. I am doing my CD release party on March the 4th at the Mint. There it is, y'all. That's the info. Go get your tickets. I have to shake the tree sometime. Y'all know I don't do any self-advertisement, but this time I got to put it up here. March the 4th is being presented by 88.5, so thank you, 88.5. A lot going on. March the 4th, CD release party for In Too Deep. I had to throw that up there, and I'll put it back up there in a minute. But I'm gonna pull myself off the screen. I want to play this real fast, Fred, and then we'll come back. You stay up there, and we will come back and talk some more about this.
Okay.
Check this out, y'all. He was talking about this, so I wouldn't found it. One of the few that I have. I know there's some better ones out there, but
For those that don't know, that's Kid Ramos on the guitar. Over here, I'm playing the B3 instead of the piano. I think Rob Rio's playing the piano on this one. And this was the Blues Festival out in Simi Valley, California, a few years back.
Cynthia Manley.
That's Finis Tasby going to sing in a minute.
I've got a cold feeling, and it's just like ice around my heart. It's a cold feeling.
That's Willie J. Campbell on the bass. I can't see the drummer yet, but I'll tell you who it is when I see him. Jimmy Bott on the drums.
I know I'm gonna quit somebody every time that feeling's gone. You treat me like a prisoner because my hand is tied, and everything you're doing to me is banging up inside. It's a cold, cold feeling, just like I surround I know I'm gonna quit somebody every time that feeling starts.
What a voice, huh? I miss that guy a lot.
Don't have no man.
You and I both, Fred. He taught me a lot. And that is the Managed Boys. That was a great show that day. That was a great show.
Yeah. A lot of people don't know I play organ too. It just has to be in the right context. Most people know me just as a piano player, but I really dig playing the B3. Some people might think Kid Ramos sounds a little bit like Hollywood Fats. There's a reason for that. They stood on stage together when Kid was very young. James Harmon hired Hollywood Fats and his band when he couldn't get no work. So I know that it'll be in the movie. When I interviewed Kid, we talked about that a lot. We learned a lot from Fats.
That was a great band, man. We used to have a lot of fun, dude.
Yeah, man.
That's the Managed Boys, ladies and gentlemen. And that was a great festival, man, until Randy kind of messed it up. But we'll talk about that soon.
There's a change in me, baby. Once I was blind, but now I see.
See, he sounds just like T-Bone right here. Nobody I know can sing like that.
Nobody, brother, nobody.
There's a change in me, baby. Once I was blind, but now I see. I'm gonna put down everybody that ever made a damn fool of me.
Don't get that's Karen Fletcher back there on rhythm guitar.
Well,
Right on. And it was funny, Fred, because I used to pick his brain all the time, and him and Otis Taylor, Otis Clay, Scrap Iron, and all them guys. They kind of took me under the wing, Johnny Rawls and Finis and Scrap. So I tell him the story because Scrap was doing the same job that Finis was doing for Little Milton and whatnot. They run together, and all this crazy stuff. And I heard some crazy stories from both of those guys. I used to tell Finis, I said, man, because we both from Texas, and he told me the story about him being Freddie King's driver all them years and blah blah blah. And no one knew that he played, no one knew that he sang, and we struck up a real good friendship when I came into the band. It was I didn't know who the Managed Boys were when I got drafted into the Managed Boys, and I remember the first show. You know how Randy would do it. I'm learning the songs on the plane. We landed in Honduras, Spain, in front of like 90,000 people, and it's me, Kid, Willie J, Sean Pittman, J.R. Lozano, and that was the band. And I was like, this doesn't like the band that you told me. And Finis and I sing it. And I used to tell Finis, Finis, your voice is like pouring water out of a pitcher. It is so smooth and blah blah blah. And he's like, that's just my voice. He said, I never thought about it. He was telling me all the cats that he knew back home. And
that's a style of singing, man. You don't.
No one does it anymore.
Finis was from a different era. So like he was old enough to have been around some of those guys when they were in their prime doing their thing.
Yeah.
And he had all the records and stuff. So it's like, it just came second nature to the guy.
Yeah. I loved it. I mean, we played many shows around the world. I used to just, because I used to be the opener. And then later, as things happened, I wound up being the closer. But I used to sit back and just listen to him. Like,
man, I played on those shows with you. Remember?
Oh, that's right.
you were like sugar who, and nobody knew who you were at that point. You were still coming up. And then I remember distinctly we recorded together. I think Bobby Jones couldn't make it or something, and we ended up recording together. And I think that's some of the first time I sat down with you and talked. You were picking my brain a little bit because it turned out that we knew a lot of the same people. Yeah. But getting back to Finis, a very unique individual who, I mean, the Hollywood Fats Band gave him a platform, and then he just ran with it. And then he got exposed to white audiences at that point. And
you guys, were you guys also the ones that helped Walter Trout? Well, y'all in that band when Walter first came out? Because Finis was telling me something about that too.
Somebody else, No, but we did work. I mean, we did work with people that were, I'm not going to say complete unknown. Like Al Blake is the guy that found Kirk Fletcher at a gospel music festival in Los Angeles. He was a teenager, and Al took him under his wing and started playing him his blues records. And then, like I said, I got Kirk some lessons with Junior Watson, and within a year or two, Kirk became this very tasteful, great guitarist, and now he's doing his own thing. He'll be in the new documentary also. Kirk has a lot of interesting things because Hollywood Fats had already passed away. Kirk was too young to have even ever come to see our band back in the day, but Al played him Hollywood Fats records, and Kirk just really flipped out and studied the music a lot and helped to perpetuate Fats' sound and keep moving it forward, in the blues realm. So
well, you were talking about Kid Ramos and something along that line. Can you speak on that?
Well, Kid Ramos was a guitar player when he was very young for James Harmon. I mean, he was a teenager, and sometimes the Hollywood Fats, we couldn't get gigs. So, somebody's asking, when's the documentary coming out? When it's done, baby. We're just we're working on it. We're trying to raise money to continue. Movies are expensive, so we're working on it. We're hoping it'll be out maybe sometime next year. We have a lot more to do. I mean, I'm only probably about 25% in right now. So, but you can donate if you want. You can find our GoFundMe page, and also you can go directly on the HollywoodFatsBand.com website and find it also. But
Kid Ramos, link up. Wizard of Oz got the link up right there, ladies and gentlemen. There's the links, the GoFundMe and the Hollywood Fats. Go ahead, brother.
So Kid Ramos was James Harmon's guitar player. We couldn't get gigs for a little while. I mean, you got to remember, this is the era the Hollywood Fats Band was competing with disco and glam rock.
Yeah.
And this is even before punk music was on the scene. Eventually, punk came out in the early 80s. We couldn't find gigs, you know, and even when we find them, people didn't know, like, well, are you guys punk? No. Are you hillbilly? No. Are you rockabilly? No. Do you guys play jazz? No. What do you play? Blues. We don't have no slot for that. Next, I mean, you know,
I'm kind of fighting that right now. I'm fighting that right now.
I understand. I mean, you know, some people just don't give blues its props, but the blues will never die. It's too powerful of a force, man. It's been around for too long to just go extinct. It ain't gonna go under, not without a serious fight. But anyway, James hired Fats to come into the band because we weren't working, and so Fats took the gig, and Kid Ramos stood next to him on stage for, I don't know, maybe a year, two. And if you stand next to Hollywood Fats and you're a guitar player on the same stage, ain't no way your guitar playing is going to stay the same. So he learned a lot, and he had a direct impact on Kid Ramos. And I'm not taking nothing away from Kid. He's a great musician and a great person and an incredible guitar player. But there was a time when Hollywood, I think if Fats would have lived, you know, I mean, he died at 32 years old, man.
I didn't realize that. And it's funny because for me as a younger guy coming up, when I moved to LA, coming up through LA and meeting all you blues greats and whatnot, I kept hearing that name, you know, and I started trying to find stuff. Because, you know, this is people don't realize, well, young people that are like 35 and younger that are here listening for us right now, they don't realize we didn't have the YouTubes and all that crap. You know, you had to go buy vinyl or go as a singer, I could use tape. I could get away with tape to learn a song. But as a guitarist or a musician, you was gonna learn that song. You had to go buy the vinyl, brother. You had to slow it down piece by piece. And,
exactly. You know, when I was a kid, when I was, you know, like in my early 20s or even late teens, there was a couple of record stores in Los Angeles that I used to go spend my whole paycheck once a month.
Yeah.
You know, I take like whatever, my $200-300, which is a lot of money. We're talking like early to mid 70s, right? Uh-huh. There was one place in Pasadena, long gone, called JNF Records, John and Frank. John Harmer lives out your neck of the woods in Arizona now.
Yeah.
Hello, if you're watching, John. Two British guys, and they had this incredible record store that sold blues, hillbilly music, jazz, gospel, only roots music. Okay. I used to go in there and shop, and sometimes I'd hold up a record. I go, "Is this one any good?" And they take a razor blade and open it up and put the record on while I was shopping. After about two songs, I go, "I'll take it, put it in my stack." So there was that place, and the other place that I used to go was on Sunset. You all remember Tower Records, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And they had a big blues section. It went on, and I'd go in there and spend my money for blues records. But you're right, that's how we learned that, and we were very fortunate at that time in the 70s. There were still lots of people in Los Angeles. This is the short list of guys that we played with, recorded with, and that were available as, you know, mentors to us. I mean, I worked with Margie Evans, great singer. She's still around. Eddie Cleanhead Vincent.
Oh man,
Albert Collins, Big Joe Turner, Pee Wee Creighton, George Harmonica Smith. Let's see who else. Lowell Folsom, Lloyd Glenn was around. I mean, there was a plethora of just amazing musicians that. Oh, and in fact, here's an interesting story. Me and Fats were the ones who actually found Roy Brown and got him out of retirement. He hadn't played in years and years. So we got an address on him. We went to go find him, and we convinced him to come out and just sing with our band. He was very reluctant to try. And there's some of that stuff is out on our recordings, which you can find on the HollywoodFatsBand.com. And there's some stuff on YouTube they can hear. Roy Brown, he was like, back in his day in the 40s, I mean, he was like Michael Jackson was in the in the 90s. I mean, he was huge in black music. He was a superstar.
Yeah, it was.
And he had his own chauffeur. They drive him around and tour and all that. And he always had a killer band. And Roy always had these amazing musician stories that he would tell us. But Roy Brown came to play with the Hollywood Fats band. And after the first night, you know, we're out in the parking lot and getting ready to leave. And he looks at Fats and me and he says, "You guys sound like my early bands." I'm like, "What do you mean?" He goes, "There's no people that," he goes, "I don't care about the color." He says, "I never heard nobody young play that kind of music." He goes, how do you know that?" And we just looked at him and said, "Well, we got all your records." So this is what made the Hollywood Fats band a really unique band, was no matter who we were playing for, we played their bag, their genre of blues. When we played with Eddie Cleanhead Vincent, we played like his old records. I mean, we had a gig at the Lighthouse in Hermosa Beach with Lightning Hopkins for a week.
Wow.
We had to play his style. I'm going to tell you a cool Lightning Hopkins story.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so we're at the Lighthouse in Hermosa Beach playing. And I think, look, maybe the first night was very frustrating for me because Lightning was a country dude. Sometimes when he played blues, it wasn't always 12 bars, if you know.
No, it's old school. Is that
Okay.
you know?
I mean,
and I'm gospel, but I grew up with those guys. They used to do the same thing in gospel.
Yeah.
That's
So,
the way they did it.
If you don't pay attention, you're gone. That's it. Okay. I mean, you just like, you might as well just go get a pizza and leave, right?
Yeah.
So we're playing. After the first night, I was really frustrated, but Fats is able to follow him, right? So the second night, I'm sitting at the bar and I'm feeling real frustrated between sets. And I looked over at Fats and I said, "Hey man, how do you follow this guy?" Because sometimes he'd play like 11 bars, sometimes it'd be like 9.5, 13 bars. It wasn't always 12 bars, right? So you know, I'm trying to find out how Fats is following him. Apparently, Lightning heard me ask the question, so he taps me on the shoulder and he turns me around. He said, "Fred," yeah. He says, "Watch my fingers." I said,
Watch
"What?"
my
He
fingers.
said, "Watch my fingers." He says, "When I go up here, you come up down there. When I go down there, you come up over there. You understand what I'm saying, Fred?" And I said, "Yes, sir." So before we went back on stage, I had my back to the band because at the Lighthouse, I had a beautiful big Steinway. And the piano was turned where I couldn't see the band, right? So I got a couple of the guys in the band, and we turned the piano around 180 degrees. And then I opened the lid so I could see through the lid, and I could see the back of Lightning Hopkins sitting in his chair, and I could see his left hand. And he would, if I paid attention, I could tell he would like telegraph the move when he was going to make the change and go to the 4 chord or something.
Yes, sir.
And that's how I was able to follow him.
Well,
It
you know,
wasn't here. It was right. You got to pay attention to him, just like church.
I'm about to say, just like church. Let me interject this because see, what a lot of blues cats that are not from the United States and even in the United States, what they don't realize is all those guys are from Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Georgia, Arkansas, all that down in there. When they played blues, there was no such thing as 12 bar. That came up later to make it easier for other musicians who were learning blues. And now everybody 12 bar blues. Those guys, if you listen to old John Lee Hooker, if you listen to old Son House, Bucka White, I mean the old stuff. If you're not a musician, you're like, well, where's the form? There was no form. Blues wasn't a form. It was a feeling. That's what we mean when we say blues is a feeling. You had to pay attention. Same way in church. You know, they would do that. I had to learn that the hard way too, because you stand up there looking embarrassed in front of everybody, and everybody done changed. You like, well, I didn't know what was the change coming from. You like, you gotta watch, and it's funny because if young cats today, no matter how good they are, guitar player, blah blah blah, if they were playing with the old cats, they'd be lost because they don't learn that. You know, they've learned to listen, but they don't learn how to watch and anticipate. Because the old guys did not believe in that 1-4-5 stuff. They never played that 1-4-5 stuff. That came on later. That came in the 60s and 70s. But a lot of those old cats still played the old ways. So if you was going, that's the one with there's an album called Milagro with John Lee Hooker and Santana, and you can hear it in there. You can hear, and they recorded it live. You can hear Santana trying to catch up because he must have been in his own little world, and John Lee done changed and went over to somewhere totally different. You can hear the band trying to catch up. Great album though, but go ahead.
The reason, that's a very important point, and I'll add this onto your point also that I think might be considered. Blues has a lot of different sub-genres within blues. I mean, you got pre-war blues, post-war blues, electric, country blues, acoustic, urban. Okay, I mean, West Coast jump music sounds a lot different than some more raw Texas blues and all that. Even though they're related, they got separate languages. And blues definitely has languages, okay, and sub-languages. And a lot of people the musicians think, well, I can learn blues. It's just it's just a feeling, but it's more than a feeling. There's language involved.
There is.
Okay? And the reason that the Hollywood Fats Band was in such demand, different blues artists from around the country, including Los Angeles, used to request our band to play behind them because we played their bag.
Right.
I mean, we
which
played
is amazing. Which is amazing to do.
Well, there's no band that I know of that ever did that or has done it, to play with authority. You could play one way behind somebody like Eddie Cleanhead Vincent and then play a completely different way to fit behind somebody like Lightning Hopkins. Okay.
Yeah.
Still blues, but completely different.
Completely different.
And the reason why it worked, I think, is the five of us, me, Richard, Larry, Al, Fats, we all had these big record collections. We all had worked with different blues people over the years, but everybody brought their vocabulary to the table.
Right.
They have these huge blues vocabularies. So when we were going to play a certain tune, Fats, we would talk about like if we were playing, I remember we were recording with, I did a couple records, I think, with Philip Walker. Remember Philip?
Yeah. Yeah.
This is a great story. We're in the studio and he was trying to get us to play this specific tune. It was me, Richard, Larry. This was after Fats had passed away. I don't remember who the guitar player was. Anyway, and Larry he couldn't latch on to what the tune had this certain feel to it with this vocabulary that Larry just couldn't draw. He couldn't draw an idea from it. So Philip Walker, he says into the microphone, he says, Larry, he says, I need you to play it kind of swampy. And Larry says, excuse me? He says, you got to play it swampy, Larry. And
swampy, baby.
He's like, what are you talking about, man? And this went on for like a half an hour. You got to get more swampy. So finally, on the break, I went over to Larry. I said, look, man, I said, think like Excello Records, 1960. Okay, I said, and then all of a sudden, Larry, oh, why didn't you say so? And then he started playing. Then he started playing it in the pocket that Philip was looking for. He was deaf. He was looking for kind of almost like a little bit of a Cajun feel on this one tune, but he couldn't. His vocabulary was what it was. So, and
which is what I've run into many times because I mean I've gotten better as the years go by, but my vocabulary was very East Texas. So sometimes I would meet up with musicians and I'm trying to explain something to them, but I didn't have the musical terms that they're used to using. So I tried to hum it out, and thank God I was a drummer. Give them the tempo and stuff. It's a weird different. It's so different, man. It is so different, and people that have a cursory glance at the blues don't realize just how many subgenres and just how much it changed. You listen to Chicago blues, and then a Chicago shuffle, and then you listen to a West Coast shuffle, and then you go down and listen to that same shuffle in Texas. It is totally.
Oh yeah, it's very regional. I got a regular gig. Anybody that's in California wants to come out. I'm playing this regular gig up in Ventura at a little jazz club. It's called
Ventura.
Well, I'm gonna tell you a story that just happened a few days ago. Okay. I play on Friday nights. I do a happy hour there, like 5 to 7. Okay. Hopefully, in the near future, I'm going to start live streaming the gig so people that don't live around here can come out and watch us online, right? 5 to 7 o'clock Pacific Standard Time on Friday evenings. So I have this drummer and this bass player. I worked a little bit with both of them, and I was trying to explain a specific feel of a tune. I said, well, it's kind of like this record, and they were like drawing a blank. I mean, they just didn't have that vocabulary. So I looked at the drummer. I said, "Shoo, shisha, shoo, shisha, shoo," and he said, "Oh, why didn't you say so, man?" Because I just had to get like real phonetic with him, and just kind of like I sort of sang out the part, and I had to tell the bass player. I said, just play quarter notes, man. Well, I don't need all that extra stuff in there. I don't need. I just play, ding, ding, ding. You know, just quarter notes. As soon as they did that, the whole tune just went like this. It locked up. But sometimes you have to spend a little bit of time, especially with people that may not have that vocabulary, so that you can hip them to what the song is supposed to feel like. Sometimes I can just say, go on YouTube and listen to this record. I want it to feel like that. And, you know, if you got the right players, they will go do their homework, and sometimes they can reproduce that feel again. You know, but the blues has so much intricate languages within the blues that, you know, it's a lifetime study, man. I've been doing this for close to 50 years now, and I'm still just scratching the surface with some of the blues music. Is just what blows my mind about blues. This is what really blows my mind. The longer I've listened to it, usually the further back in time I go.
Yes,
okay.
Sir.
I mean, I like modern blues and stuff, but I keep finding myself listening to older and older and older music. And this is what blows my mind. How could people who weren't even allowed to have instruments sometimes, okay, come up with this incredibly genius music? Nothing was written down. Super oppressed people, and you know, in the mid-20s, white record labels started putting out race records, right? Mm-hmm. And I listened to those recordings, and it's like genius, man. I mean, they had no way to write it down. It was all oral tradition, you know. And so I'm just telling this because I know a lot of the listeners on here already might know some of this stuff, but it's not just about supporting the local blues artists, which is important. Mm-hmm. We got to support where it came from. For example, there's a record label called Document Records.
Yes.
It got bought up by the rock and roll guy, Jack White.
Oh, I didn't know that. Yeah,
he owns the whole catalog. You know, I have probably about a half of that catalog I've bought since I was in my teens. It was from Austria originally.
Yeah.
But if you listen to like a lot of the old pre-war blues recordings, and you can hear where the post-war stuff came from. And then if you listen to the post-war stuff, you can hear where like bands like Hollywood Fats Band came from. And I mean, this is an interesting story, but I mean, I stepped off the stage this was years ago. Remember the Doheny Festival?
Yes, I do.
I think you and me played there.
We played that. Yeah, I think once. I played it once.
I stepped off the stage, and I was backstage hanging out, and they had that beautiful backstage area right there. And some 23-year-old kid comes up to me. Excuse me, Mr. Kaplan, and I'm like looking around, like, is he talking to my dad? Right. I'm thinking, who's Mr. Kaplan? So finally, I realized he's talking to me, right?
Yeah.
So I said, yeah, you know, and he has a record under his arm. He said, could you sign this for me? And he holds the record out. I said, I mean, this is a recording that I did in 1976, the Hollywood Fats Band. It came out in 79. And it was one of the original pressings with the blue vinyl inside.
Yeah.
And I said, where did you get this? And he points over his shoulder. And his parents were standing about 20 feet away watching him talk to me. And I said, what do you mean? He says, my parents grew up on your music. And I'm starting to feel pretty old now. I said, your parents grew up on my music? And he goes, yeah, my dad turned me on to your record. He goes, would you please sign it for me? You know, I signed it, and then I motioned, and the parents came over, and they're like, thank you so much for, you know, the blues that you've been playing all these years. And, you know, and they were like super nice. They were huge fans of the Hollywood Fats Band. They were like close to my age. And they said, oh yeah, we used to come see you play before we were married, and this and that happened. I said, and then I looked at him, I said, was he a result of you coming to see us? And they kind of laughed, you know. But the reality is that the blues music, you know, in its pure form, always gets somehow passed down orally from one generation to the next. And the Hollywood Fats Band just happened to be on the scene in the 70s when, I mean, you know, I heard stories going to the gigs, man. Take Big Joe Turner, me and Fats would drive him to the gig, you know, and
come on in talking. This house. Stop all that yakety yak. Oh, I love that
I mean,
song.
he would talk. I mean, Big Joe Turner was making records in the 30s, in the 30s. You understand
Yeah.
what I'm saying? So,
Yeah.
I mean, you know, Eddie Cleanhead Vincent used to tell, he said, oh yeah, John Coltrane was in my band for a minute. I'm like, excuse me? Did you just say John Coltrane? Yeah. Yeah. He used to play R&B. Central Avenue in Los Angeles was
I
the
heard about
place
this.
for
I
a
heard
long
about that.
time.
Can you speak
Yeah.
on that real fast?
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, for anybody that doesn't know, I'm not knocking and saying anything bad about any of the other places, but the blues is a whole lot bigger than Chicago, Memphis, and the Delta.
Yes, it
Okay.
is.
The West Coast, particularly Los Angeles, somewhat up in the Bay Area too, had a really strong influence on blues because you had all these incredible blues artists that would play up and down on Central Avenue. It had lots of jazz clubs and lots of blues and R&B places back in the 30s and 40s and in the 50s. I remember Roy Brown told me, he said, yeah, man, I used to play on Central Avenue when I would come out to Los Angeles, and you could go up the street when I was playing and T-Bone would be playing here. And then you go down a little bit further, Miles Davis was playing over there. And then you go up a little bit further, Pee Wee Creighton was over there. And then you go down a little bit further and it was like Dexter Gordon or, you know, some other heavy jazz guy. And Los Angeles was a bastion of incredibly talented Black musicians and singers for many decades, like all through the 30s, maybe as far as back as the 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, and even into the 60s a little bit before it started to deteriorate and blues became not as popular as it, you know, as it once was, which a whole nother subject we can get into if you want. But the blues music that I really like, I mean, I love playing with guitar and harmonica players because that's what I made my living at all these years. But I like a lot of the music before the electric guitar became popular.
Okay.
Piano and horn bands were king for a long time.
Yes, they were. A lot of people don't realize that.
No, I mean, you can listen to like Roy Milton and, you know, just some of the early bands that were in blues that came out. The records are out there. Okay. I mean, back in the day, you and me had to spend our paychecks buying records.
Yeah.
Now the world's largest record collection is online for free. It's called YouTube.
But the funny thing for me was I never really bought that many. I mean, I bought some R&B stuff, but you know, you have to remember, and this is what I've had to struggle to get people to understand. I was born in East Texas in the 60s. So I always tell people in the rest of the world, it might have been 1980, but I was still in East Texas. It was 1945. And so I grew up with these guys. I grew up with these guys that would preach and then go play nightclub on Saturday night, Friday night. And, you know, I knew Ella Delbro, a lot of these guys, I found out later as I got older, a lot of these guys were old blues cats that came back over the gospel. But most of us started gospel. So I grew up with the guys that was maybe what you would call the second generation of blues and gospel guys. And that was the education that I learned. So when I came out, you know, even though people didn't know who I was, they're like, man, your field. And I'm like, my field. I don't go by field, but where I'm from, this is the way you had to do it because this is the way you were taught. You did anything else. They were like, no, that ain't right. You ain't doing it right. Slap you across the head and teach you. So even though I'm a younger cat, my soul and my knowledge is much older because of where and when I grew up.
Yeah. I mean, I knew a lot of guys. Some of them didn't have very big names at all, but a lot of times, you know, they'd be playing clubs Friday and Saturday night, Sunday morning, same music, different message.
Yes. Same music, different. And that's the funny thing, Fred, that you put that there. So that's why I love talking to you because you've been there. Right? And you and a few other cats. Yes. They don't realize a lot of people hear it and they hear you say it, but they've never gone into the Black church. And I'm not knocking anybody's religion. I don't even talk religion on this thing. You live how you live. All I say is treat everyone the way you want to be treated. But they don't realize that they hear that the blues and gospel are one, but they don't realize how one it is. I mean, literally Saturday night, you was playing this 145 medium tempo song, you know, yes, I love you, baby. And you know I'm going to treat you right. And the next day, which was Sunday, they playing that same song. Like, yes, you know I love you, Lord. And I know you're going to treat me right. It was the exact same music. They just changed the words.
Exactly. And I mean, Lloyd Glenn used to take me to church when I was pretty young. He'd take me down. You remember Fred Price?
Yes, I know the name. I
Yeah,
didn't.
he's a very famous pastor here in Los Angeles, and he used to take me down there. And I would go visit black churches a lot because I love gospel music.
Uh-huh.
And I like the way I felt when I would go inside. And eventually, I started playing in some black churches. And like we were talking about earlier,
which is a big deal, because if you're gonna be a piano player or a B3 player,
I'm gonna tell you the story.
Okay.
Like I would sit at the piano, and usually when the service starts, you don't drink no water an hour before, because
No.
you don't get to leave the piano stool until church is over.
Over, brother.
I don't care how bad you got. I mean,
You don't leave that chair. That chair better not never be empty. And God forbid, one of these days I'm gonna go through and start telling these stories about these revivals, these month-long revivals, and how we'd have like 8 organists and 9 drummers lined up, and we'd be backstage, and you can hear a guy starting to wane because he's been playing, excuse my French, balls out for 2 hours, and you can hear he's like, he's getting tired, and somebody come in and slide right on over, and the music never stopped. They do the same thing with the drummer. Just switch them out.
There's a signal in black church that a lot of folks don't know what the signal is. It goes like this.
Yes, sir. Point to the Lord.
If you do this, I mean, I need a minute.
I need a minute.
I gotta go use a facility.
Yeah,
you do that in church.
But you don't tell that to the pastor. You tell that to another musicians, because the pastors didn't care. The music better not never stop.
So I'm sitting at the piano, and I used to play with a few different evangelists, they would call themselves, and they'd be talking just like we're talking right now, okay? And they're talking, and I'm watching them. Nobody's playing no music; they're just talking, and they're delivering a message. And all of a sudden, they go ha, and then they start singing, and you got to find the key, got to find the tempo.
Oh yes, sir.
You got to be like right on it, He's talking. Next week we'll be at the. Angelus, and then he'll start singing, and you like what happened? I mean, nobody gave me. You don't get no cue.
No, sir.
No signal. You don't get no green light.
Fred, I'm laughing because I'm literally back. I'm back home. It's like you took me home, so it's like, because I remember all this, and it's like, my one of the B3 players. The other thing I told people that I had to get used to when I came into circular music, I used to tell them, I said, well, listen. And people don't realize, I didn't realize how rare it was. And people today even musicians don't even really get it. I said, listen, when I grew up, if you sat behind the B3, they're like, yeah, you had to play full 10-finger chords. The entire bass line was played on the bass pedals, and they were singing over there. And people think that I'm making this up or making a joke. Man. And I'm like, no, that's how you played.
If you play in black church, this is what I tell people. I said, the musicians in the black church they're like the prototype for multitasking individuals. you gotta be doing like 17 things at one time. One eye's looking over here at the speaker, one eye's looking over here at the band leader, both eyes are looking at, it's yes, crazy, because there's all these different elements in church, and if you miss one of them,
you mess up the whole thing.
No, they say, we'll see you next month. You can take off the rest of this month, Fred.
Yeah, they tell you, brother. And that's the thing about the black churches. They'll tell you. And for me, I was the choir director. So I had it even double whammy, because I had to watch the preacher, the musicians, and sometimes a 300-member choir. And I'm standing out there in the middle of this, and I was young. Anyway, man, those stories, you really taking me back.
I'm going to tell you a funny story. So I was playing at this small black congregation, and they didn't have a drummer. And at the last minute, the evangelist asked me, you know anybody we can call? So I'm frantically, I think this is when cell phones were fairly new. I'm calling people finally I reached this one guy I used to play with. He says, yeah, he showed up like 20 minutes before the church started. Yeah. And, he was a white dude around my age. He's actually a very good drummer. I'm going to leave his name out of this for a minute, because the story gets very interesting. So it's like 15, 20 minutes, and we start playing, the church starts going, and the evangelist is jumping, and we're making the music and everything's good, and there's a lot of ha! And everything else is going good. And she turns around and looks at him, and she realized he got short pants on.
Oh,
and he's playing with short pants and flip flops. Yeah, and
a black church.
And she gets on the microphone. She says, "Did your mom address you today?" And he goes,
"Oh yeah, brother."
I mean, and she took him apart on stage. she said, "You need to go home and put some clothes on and come back over here." So I mean, she embarrassed him for like 15 minutes in front of the I mean, I think he felt about that big. And he got in his car, he went home, he got some clothes, and he came back and kept playing with us. But I mean, you know, I never wore Levi's or a T-shirt ever in a black church.
I always tell people, when you came out of the church, like me, especially me, I grew up Church of God in Christ, Holiness of Hell. And these were the Aretha Franklins and all these people came out of. I mean, I always told people that.
I've been to many Kojic churches. I know all
I said, once you came out of the church, every other music would be like me being a 10-year Marine and now I'm a security guard. Being a security guard ain't nothing to play with. I mean, by the time you come out of the church, you're already polished. You've already went to college. And not only did you go to college, you've been in the trenches. So by the time you go to play circular music, it's like, well, this is easy, because them black folks will call you out. Not only that, some kid that's 8 years younger than you will sit down behind the drums, the keyboard, and play stuff that just blows your mind, and you just sitting there like, what is this? You know,
right?
It's a proving ground, you know.
Well, and to this day, you know, when I have a little bit of free time, especially with YouTube now, because everybody is on YouTube, you know, people you never heard about. I spend a lot of time watching gospel music because I see a lot of younger people that are like incredibly talented coming up. Yeah. One of my favorite groups right now, I've been following them for years since they were little. If y'all don't know who they are, you got to check out the Walls family. WALLS.
Yeah.
I mean, harmonies, rhythms. I mean, they're incredible. I've been watching them for years as they grow, and they're starting to come in more and more to their own. But black gospel music has produced some of the most incredible music the world has ever known. Just like blues, it's had an effect on all of music history. I mean,
but it is blues.
Yeah, it is. Oh, I mean, it comes out of black culture. But you know, a lot of folks a lot of people try to make that distinction a lot of times, and I understand why, because you know, the blues is devil music and gospel is the Lord's music. But what people really fail to think, it ain't like so much that today. It's not like that today, but back then, you know, those blues guys were gospel guys. Most of those guys played at church. That's how they made a living. They played gospel music and then went play blues on the side, and you know, you had to hide that because, you know, people at church would be like, hey, he was playing blues down on the corner, such and such, and you're going to get reprimanded, you know. There was a guy who was a big influence on my playing. I still listen to him to this day. He went by the name of Georgia Tom. Okay, he made blues records in the 20s with Tampa Red.
Okay.
He was hugely popular. Well, at some point in his career, he gave up blues and only did gospel music. And his real name is Thomas Dorsey.
Yeah,
a lot of people call him the father of gospel music.
I was just going to let you tell the story.
He started off as a blues musician, man.
I was going to let you tell the story because a lot of people don't realize. Not only is a blues musician, he was playing with Mamie Smith, and he also played with the Queen of the Blues at that time. Bessie Smith. And we talking about, he was playing low down, dirty blues. You know, the kind of stuff that, you know, I love doing some of that music because it's just out of this world. It's beyond dirty. It's beyond blue. You have to pick the right audiences to sing it and play it. Make sure they're not too uptight. But you talk about Thomas Dorsey, who is the father of modern gospel music. This man was the piano player for these people in these juke joints. It's the same music. It's the same heartfelt. You know, and that's why if you come to one of my shows, people say, they'll always tell you, like, it was like being at church. I say, well, it has no choice but to be like being at church, because you talking about a guy who has been church through and it's through my soul. Whether I try to or not, that's coming out. That gospel feel, that feel, you know, people come to all the time like, man, that's why I say it's not a concert, it's a party, because I come to have, you know, as we used to say, I come to have church. You know, whether I'm singing blues or not, I'm coming to have church. not church. And I've told people that there's a difference, not church, but church. We're gonna have some church tonight. You know, I was telling you my organist, he one of the organists we know he learned because you know we used to have devotional service. The choir march in, and then you have devotional service where people can get up and testify or they'll sing a song. And somebody said they didn't want to go to the black church because everybody that could sing. No, they can't. And he had the B3 set up where some of these people would be singing in between keys, and he could turn the B3 off and turn it back on. He had this power switch installed, and it would drop in between keys for that song. And he could, I mean, this is the kind of innovation we talking about. You know, these guys, you know, I think it was because there was no rules. You know, it was just get the job done, and you had to find out a way to do it. That's what I think.
I'll tell you an interesting story, because this is a segue into my career a little bit. But the church thing had a major impact on me, because when I would go to church before I started playing in them, when I'd go to black churches, the musicians and the singers were like seamless. And it blew my mind how they would work together, you know, like they could read each other's minds almost. And I didn't really fully understand it until I started doing it. And sometimes there'd be like a little musical thing that the organ player would do or the piano player would do. By the way, having an organ and a piano is a very unique thing. Now that's strictly a gospel thing. And since I play both instruments, if they put me on the piano, I play a specific way if there's an organ player. And if they put me on the B3, I play completely different than when I play the piano, because you have to interact together.
Right. Okay.
They're totally different instruments, and they talk to each other. And I know you know what I'm talking about.
Yes, I do.
So anyway, this is kind of an interesting story. But when I was in my mid-20s, I wanted to learn how to play jazz, because at that point I pretty much mostly just played blues. Okay. And some R&B music and stuff. I could play soul music and stuff too, but jazz was a challenge to me because it was musically much more sophisticated for me at the time.
Yes.
And there was a club on the corner of Washington and was it I think La Brea, called the Parisian Room, and it's long gone now. But on that corner it stands a United States Post Office. But I used to go to the Parisian Room. It was a pretty much 99% all black nightclub, and they had a lot of jazz there. And I used to go down there sometimes, and I would see different jazz artists. The guy that had the regular gig house band there was Red Holloway, this great saxophone player. Yeah. And I got to be friends with him through Larry Taylor. They worked together, and I got to meet Red many times. And sometimes when I go down there was like, the other guy that kind of like owned the house, he was Red Fox. He used to come in there unannounced all the time, and the audience would just part, and he'd come up on stage. And I thought Rudy Ray Moore was nasty.
I tell people all the time, Red Fox.
You got Red Fox used to cut Rudy Ray Moore. He used to cut him. Okay. And so there was like, they would have these contests with the comedians. I can't even get into it on this show because I might get arrested for using specific words, but I'm going to tell you, I used to hear Richard Pryor, a lot of those guys would go down there and practice in this club, right? And between jazz sets.
Yeah.
So anyway, I was in there one night, and I can't remember how it happened, but Red Holloway asked me for my number. Larry told him I could play. A few weeks later, I get the phone call. Hey man, can you come down and play? I'm saying, what do you mean? He goes, I got a jazz gig for you at the Parisian Room. Can you come play? He goes, I think something happened to his piano player. He might have been
arrested or something.
Temporarily incarcerated, something along those lines.
There was a lot of that going on.
I don't want to tell you, but it's like, hey, there's a spot it's just happened to be available. Okay. So I show up down at the club. It's like a Thursday night, right? And they're playing some serious jazz in this all black audience. And at the end of the night, I'm standing around the piano waiting to get paid. And Red Holloway comes over and he puts the money on the piano. And I go to pick up the money, and he grabs my hand and says, wait a minute. And he reaches in his pocket and he flips his car keys on the piano lid. He said, go out to my car, open the trunk, there's a milk crate in, bring it in here. Okay. So he wouldn't let me get paid yet. And I bring this milk crate in, and it's full of records, albums. You know, this is before CDs and cassettes were just kind of new at the time. And he starts going through there, and he's pulling out, like, oh, this is Horace Silver. This one's Dexter Gordon. This is Art Blakey, the jazz. He's laying these records on me. He gave me about 6 or 7 records. He says, I need you to take these home and listen to these tonight. And he says, tomorrow, if you come back here and you make the same mistakes that you made tonight, don't come back here no more.
Wow. Yep.
So I took the records home, you know, and I had to shed with these records. I didn't go to sleep that night. I went home. I started listening to the record till the sun came up. And then I took a nap for a couple hours and ate something. And then I spent the whole rest of the day listening to these records, trying to understand what's going on. And the next day, I came back to the club, and I was really scared. And we played. And at the end of the night, Red Holloway comes over, and I'm thinking he's going to cut me. Right? I'm going to lose the gig. And he put some money on the thing, and I didn't pick it up. He goes, you can go ahead and pick up your money, Fred. I said, what do you mean? He goes, I needed to see. He said, you did okay tonight. He says, I need to see if you was going to sink or swim. I said, what do you mean? He said, I need to know if you want to learn or if you just playing, you want to learn.
Now,
and he said, now move over. I'm going to show you how the songs really go. And he played better piano than me now. This is a saxophone player. He sat down and he showed me all the hip chords. He's like, okay, this is how this goes. And he's teaching me like all the inversions and the substitutions. And he's like, when I do this, then you can do that. And he took me in, and that was my baptism by fire in the jazz world, to learn, you know, the older guys. They didn't just like give you sheet music. I mean, he wanted to know, like, are you going to sink to the bottom of the pool, or are you going to tread water until I see that you're trying?
You know, the funny thing, Fred, is because I grew up that way, I've lost musicians and gained musicians because, you know, when Leo, my keyboard player, who was Ike Turner saxophone player, keyboard, he one of them guys that played 7 instruments. Keyboard was his second instrument. You know, but he was my keyboard player. And, you know, and he played like the brothers from church. He's out of Detroit area, White Cat. When Leo had the stroke, I needed a keyboard player. Well, you know, these cats in California, around the world, they're not used to that. You know, I remember Drake came down to sit in the gig that, you know, all the keyboard players, which I was shocked that you wasn't there, but all the keyboard players in LA were at this gig. I went down and played Malarkey's down in Long Beach. And everybody knew that Suga was looking for a keyboard player. So I had Mo Beeks, Finnegan to show up, of course, because Finnegan, but a lot of the big name cats is that, right? And Drake comes up, and I go into a song. And I mean, it's a song. You know, it's not even a shuffle, it's a song. And you can see him panicking, but he's figured something. So 2 days later, I called him up and said, well, man, you know, you want the gig. And he's like, man, I didn't think I did that good. I said, you don't understand. I'm old school. I said, I want to throw you to the fire. I'm going to see how you react, you know, and that's how I pick my band. I said, because it ain't always going to be laid out 1 through 10. I need guys that can pivot on the dime. And like at my shows, I don't even like to use a set list. So, I don't care if I'm making up a song or not. I need to know that you're going to play and have something that's going to contribute, and you ain't going to just be sitting there and I'm paying you to hold the spot, you know. And that's where I've done my whole band since first time I ever, you know, it's trial by fire. Yeah, you can go home and learn all the songs, you know, but I may pick a song that you never even learned, and I'm trying to see how you going to react. And that's the way the church was. It was that way. They would start out something, you better make up something, you better do something, but you know, and it made you learn, it made you listen, it made you think outside of the box. And you know, I appreciate more and more every year the lessons that I learned all them years of playing in church. And it's funny because you were talking about the walls. You know, I came up in that era in gospel music where it was all about choirs, and it slowly changed into these groups. So I've gotten to play with the Mighty Clouds of Joy. I've gotten to play with the Jackson Subdivisions. You know, it's kind of like me and Al Cooper had this conversation because Al was the same way, young cat up in New York, but he was sneaking to the black churches and he learned to look and listen to and play with these black guys. And, you know, it's such a different music and such a different way of thinking a lot of times that people just don't, you either get it or you don't.
That's right.
But what I loved about the old cats was they gave you a chance, They gave you one chance.
Oh yeah, you got at least one chance.
You got at least one chance. But they would tell you in a heartbeat, like you ain't cutting it, you ain't got it.
I'm gonna tell you, this is directly related to this. There's a guy that Fats used to play for, a legendary singer named Jimmy Witherspoon.
Oh,
everybody knows Witherspoon, right? And he was a tremendous singer. Okay, a lot of guys that were like big singers, like Joe Turner and Roy. Some of them would only sing in one key.
Yes, sir.
And there's a lot of folks don't know this, but there is such a thing as a church key.
Yes, there is.
Okay? I'm not talking about something that opens bottles. I'm not that kind of church key. There's a real church key.
There's a real church key, brother.
For the folks that don't know, that aren't musicians, that key is called A flat.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And if you don't play in A flat, or you can't learn A flat, you ain't gonna play in church.
You ain't gonna play in church.
So Jimmy Witherspoon had a slot open where I think his keyboard, he had a really great organ player named Charles Erland at the time, who was like this monster player, and he got sick or something. So Fats called me up. He goes, "Man, can you make some gigs with Spoon with me?" I'm like, okay. This is the Hollywood Fats Band was just kind of starting to form when Fats had time off from Jimmy Witherspoon. Before that, he was playing with Muddy Waters. Before that, he played with John Lee Hooker and J.B. Hutto. And so the Hollywood Fats Band wasn't completely gelled yet. We were still playing. And he said, "Hey, man, Spoon only sings in A flat." I'm like, "What?" He goes, "He don't sing in no other keys, man." Because I was only playing in like all the guitar keys. E, A, D, G, And he says, "You need to bone up, man, and do some shedding on A flat." And it scared the hell out of me, man. But I had to go home and start working on it. And I remember I could tell this one Jimmy Witherspoon story. I think it's clean enough for me to tell. But we were backstage or in a hotel room or something, and the gig was downstairs. And I'd played a little bit with Spoon before, and he was a kind of a hard guy to play for sometimes because he was extremely demanding. But as long as you did your job, he was cool, right? Yeah. So there's and Spoon says, "Get the door." So Fats opens the door, the door, and this little skinny white dude comes inside, and he goes, "Excuse me," he says, "Mr. Witherspoon," he says, "we got sound check in 5 minutes." And Spoon gets out of his chair and he grabs the guy and he pulls him by the collar into the room. He goes, "A sound check?" He goes, "I know how I sound. I sound fine." He goes, "Go check your own sound. I'll be down in 10 minutes.
Yes.
And I was laughing, and Fats was, we're like, and we came to play. And Fats gave me another piece of advice that night. He said, "Whatever you do, don't listen to Jimmy Witherspoon." I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "He knows where he's going on the song. Just play your 12 bars, Fred."
Yeah.
Okay. I said, "What are you talking about?" He goes, "I'm telling you, don't listen to Spoon. If you listen to Spoon, it's going to drive you crazy because he knows where he's at." Right. So Spoon calls the slow blues. And that was one of his classic things. He had a couple really great slow blues. And when I say slow blues, this is the tempo he used to count it off at. I ain't making up. I ain't lying. He go 1, 2, 3, 4. That was the tempo.
Yes, sir.
Okay. I mean, you could go out and have a cigarette before it would get to the 4 note. I mean, it was slow, real slow. Okay. And he starts the tune and he's singing, and I took Fats' advice, and I'm already on the 5 chord and I'm playing the turnaround.
Yes.
And Spoon is still singing like off the 4 somewhere.
Yeah.
But when we hit the turnaround, he'd catch up right to you.
Yep.
And you'd be right on. And I look at him, I'm like, it was like from outer space, man. But the dude knew exactly what he was doing.
Yeah.
He knew exactly where he was going. And you cannot pay attention to where he's at because he would throw you completely sideways if you, not intentionally, but you had to just find that form and stick to it.
That's hard for a musician because what it is as a musician, I would qualify because I do that sometimes. I've gotten better because a lot of musicians can't follow that. Think about it as a drummer or a guitarist. You're playing behind the beat. and drummers and musicians think they created that, but that actually was created by singers. And you're singing behind the beat because you're ringing out every nuance of that song. I'm gonna catch you when you get to the turnaround. But like you said, if you're not used to that,
it'll mess you up.
And now with my band, with my band, we have the same problem. If I'm walking around, we're in a big, let's say we're in a big stadium, and I'm like 400 feet from the stage. I'm using a wireless mic. They had to learn because they would get embarrassed in front of thousands of people. But it's a delay by the time what I sing out there in front of the crowd. By the time it get to them, and there were times that the band messed up, and they had to learn like same thing, like don't follow Ray. You guys know the song. Lee, when Ray walks out there, we just play the song. Let him be. Let him.
For those that aren't musicians listening, okay, I'm gonna demonstrate exactly what I'm talking about, and you can go on YouTube and verify what I'm talking about. If you watch Magic Johnson, or you watch Michael Jordan, or what's the other guy? The other great basketball player that retired now anyway, all those guys that I'm talking about, when they're playing on the court back in their day, they're looking like this, but then they go like this with the ball. They never look like that. They're looking this way over here, okay? And they go up like to the basket, and then they just take the ball and go like that, push it that way. And never turn their head, their body, nothing. And that's because they worked on it. Yeah. And the dude receiving the ball knew it was going to come without the look.
Right.
Okay. And when you play certain kinds of music, like what we're talking about, it's very similar. Sometimes you can't watch the person. You just have to just go straight ahead, and the ball's going to come to you, and you just better be ready to catch it.
You be ready to catch it. That's a good analogy, Fred. Look, man, we already be on this thing over 2 hours. I can hear your questions, but we got to get going. I got to drive back to LA. Let me ask you one more time. Can you speak one more time on the document?
Yeah. Okay. So this is a really epic movie that's going to be about Hollywood Fats, particularly, and the band, and the influence that the Hollywood Fats band had on blues, but particularly focused around this genius guitar player with Hollywood Fats. We're trying to raise money to continue the movie so that we can stay in production. We have a bunch of great interviews already. We got more coming. There's quite a bit of still photos that we have, and excerpts and all kinds of stuff. But essentially, the Hollywood Fats band formed in the early to mid 1970s and continued until Fats passed away in '86. And then the band became the Hollywood Blue Flames. And the music continued to live on. And that band will be in the movie, obviously, too, because everybody was still alive except for Fats, and we ended up with various and sundry different guitar players for a long time. So the movie, we're going to continue to work on it. I just launched HollywoodFatsBand.com website that has some information about the movie, lots of great pictures of Fats and band histories and stuff like that. And I'll be putting posts up on the documentary on the website and on Facebook, maybe a little bit on YouTube, to keep people informed as the movie progresses. We can start doing clips. At some point when we get into post-production, I would like to have some special screenings. Maybe we can do one right here on your show. I don't know.
Hey, I'd be honored, my brother. I'd be honored.
And maybe if you have me back on again in the not too distant future, I'm thinking I need to go set up the camera on the piano.
Well, let's talk about that right now real fast, because I got somebody for next week. But what about the week after that? Are you available? Because people already they already like, we got to get some more of these stories. They want to hear these stories, baby.
Well, but I also want to demonstrate with you, like we ain't going to rehearse nothing. We're just going to do what we do.
Okay.
And we're going to play music as we hear it and feel it, unrehearsed, and so people can understand like the transitions that happen between the singers, the musicians, and how that works. And people can see it live in real time. And
I like it.
Yeah, and I think that will help demonstrate some of what we've been talking about. But I think having the piano set up and get the camera angle on it right, so I can talk and play at the same time as you.
Yeah.
And then we have some church.
We have some church, baby. I like that. Some church. I dig it. Ladies and gentlemen, my guest today Barbara around there. We're cool. We're gonna make that happen, Barbara. I'm trying to get him on week after next. We'll see what his schedule is like. I know he's a busy man, but we'll get him back, y'all, because he's dropped some serious knowledge today. And Fred, from the bottom of my heart, thank you for taking the time. I know it was a little weird with the text messages and all that, but I appreciate you being willing to work through it and take the time. And from the bottom of my heart, thank you for being here, brother.
I want to reiterate one last thing that you started your show with.
Yep.
Do something nice for somebody. We live in some very unusual times right now, and what Sugaray was saying is the real deal. You know, if you got to cook a meal for somebody, bring them a blanket, some clothes, go down and help your neighbor out, babysit their kids for a minute, take somebody to the store, pick up some groceries for them. There's a lot of things you can do that don't cost very much, if anything at all. Mm-hmm. Being nice to somebody don't cost a lot.
No, don't.
And it yields a big return, right?
Yes, it does.
So I just want to just back you up 110% on that.
Thank you, brother.
It's something we need to continue to do, not just as a blues community, but just as human beings. We need to continue to help each other and to look out for one another. And when you see people that are in need, help them out.
Help them out.
Help them out.
I mean, what's it going to cost you? A couple minutes of your day? I mean, that was the question of the day. Like I said, it was a challenge. The challenge was, I want everyone today. You can keep it going beyond the day if you feel like it, but at least for the day, I just want everyone to do something nice for someone beside themselves, and not for any reward or anything, just for the act of actually doing it and passing good feelings and good vibes and love along the ley lines.
I learned a long time ago, man, going to the black churches, especially, there's a real blessing in when you learn how to give out of your own need.
Yes, sir.
All right. I'm just going to leave that one right there.
Yes, sir.
Because it's a very interesting principle. And if people want to dig into it a little bit, they will see what I'm talking about. Because what you're talking about is right in that exact pocket.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Well, I'm looking forward to somebody saying pay it forward. That's it. Exactly. We're paying it forward in a lot of different ways, not just with music. But music is that universal language, right?
Yep.
A lot of times you can reach people with music. They may not ever darken the door of a church or a synagogue or a temple, but you could still reach people with music. And I think that's why music is such a powerful tool. We got to keep moving forward and telling the story and let people know, this life is short. We need to continue to help everybody out. And right now there's crazy stuff going on. Nobody needs to go hungry.
No.
Nobody needs to be in need all the time, and there's ways we can help people. You don't have to go around the world to help somebody. There's people down in your neighborhood that could use some help.
Probably next door.
Exactly.
Ladies and gentlemen, the inimitable Mr. Fred Kaplan. Let's give him a big hand. Fred, again, thank you so much for being here. I really, really appreciate it. And y'all know me, as I always say before the end of every show, please, for God's sakes, be good to one another.
Amen.
And to yourself. All right, y'all have a blessing. Fred, thank you very much. We are out. I'm going to leave you with this one from the new album. I hope you guys can dig it. And Mr. Fred Kaplan, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you.